Time to give up, you blue bimbo.
The fight's not over till it's over. Draw! This'll do. Here it goes. I play the graphics card, RX 6600 Fighter.
You really think that card can beat my game cards? Now that's comedy.
Only one way to find out. Go 6600. Attack! Yo, it's codename Catfish, and as you can see, I am neither cat nor fish. I'm a robot, and this is a GPU. It's the RX 6600. It's said to be a really good entry-level gaming GPU. Today, we're gonna see how great it really is in 1080p. So, let's open it up. Here it is. A box. It's got the moon, the earth, and a little bit of sun for some vitamin D. The back of the box tells us exactly what we're getting. Based. Inside the box, we get a bag with the GPU inside, and we get a quick installation guide. Bruh, if it was so quick, couldn't they just fit the guide on the card? So this version of the 6600 is the Power Color Fighter. It's small and light, but it's definitely a fighter. You'll see. It's a dual slot card that's got 2 fans, and it's got no back plate. Yep, we're riding with this thing bareback. How lewd! For power, it's got one 8-pin PCIe power port, and for the I/O, it's got 3 DisplayPort 1.4s, and 1 HDMI 2.1 port. It's generic. Let's take a look at the card specs. So this card isn't new. It's an RDNA 2 card. When it came out in the middle of 2021, it retailed at $330. It's got 1792 cores, 8GB of GDDR6, and 128-bit plus. It may not look as impressive as something like a 4060, but then you look at the 4060's price, and all of a sudden, this card looks way more impressive. You can get this card for under $200 now, at least in the US. I got mine for $190. I'ma go and pop this thing into my Sonic test bench, and we're gonna check out the specs. Behold! Test bench. I built it with some of that DIY test rack in blue, and some random drawer rack I found off of Amazon. So we'll be running Windows 11 64 bits. The motherboard is a B760M PG Sonic. The I/O plate came in messed up, but otherwise the board works just fine. The CPU is the i7 12700K. It's an older CPU, but it should still be pretty good. It's cooled with the Phantom Spirit 120 SE. It's cheap and it actually works. I mounted 2 Noctua fans on it, which I was gonna use as case fans, but the temps of the GPUs were fine, so I just threw them on the cooler. The RAM is 32GB of DDR5 at 6400MHz. The GPU is the RX 6600. It's our fighter for this video. The storage is 4TB of solid-state drive. I got this for $160 on Prime Day last year, and it's all powered by a 750-watt power supply. Yep, this is my test bench. It is way past cool. I'ma go over how to set this up real quick. The CPU and GPU will be using our out-of-the-box defaults, and the RAM will be clocked to 6400MHz. This will be the GPU driver version we'll be using. I'll uncap the frame rate for games that support uncapped frame rates. And of course, we're gonna be playing in 1080p. With all that out of the way, it's that time again. It's playtime. We'll start with Sonic Frontiers, cause you know, Sonic Test Bench. We'll play on high settings. FYI, the game cap's at 60. So we're spinning around the map with a spin dash, and as you can see, we're averaging at 60 FPS sharp. It rarely dips under 60. See that? That silver hammer. We're gonna beat it up. Sonic sure has developed a fighting style. I mean, just look at him. Even his fighting is fast. Unfortunately, it looks like the enemy's gotta go be a bullet sponge. Fist sponge. Foot sponge. Fast sponge. I guess this is gonna take a bit. Finally. That was too slow for Sonic. So yeah, on high settings in the overworld, the game performs just fine. So let's go ahead and jump into cyberspace. So we're here, ramping up the spin dash. See what I did there? We're still averaging at 60 FPS sharp, so that's good. Oh man, it's gonna be one of those stages, huh? This is like, way past lame as hell. I know this is a 1080p video, but I decided to try out some other resolutions on high settings in the overworld. And check this out, 1440p actually runs pretty decently, but it can still dip into the low 50s. Well, it's still way better than how the A770 ran with this game. Then we get to 4K, and as you can see, the game's telling you that the 6600 is not a 4K card. Nope. I mean, I guess it's fine if you want to play on 30 FPS, but it's not stable 30. It's more like you're playing on a console, isn't it? Ew. You know what though? This could be a good opportunity to try out Radeon Super Resolution. With a 4K monitor, we'll set the game to 1080p, and in Adrenaline, we'll flip on RSR. You may not be able to see the visual differences in this video, but check this out. The frame rate is just as good as it was in 1080p. And yep, that's way past cool. The third Sonic movie's gonna come out soon. Are you excited for it? I know I am. Time for more Cyberpunk 2077. We'll start with the in-game benchmark tool with various graphic settings. So here are the results. Starting with native resolution, Ultra came out not quite averaging at 60 FPS, but in the high 50s. High settings managed to average in the mid-60s, so that's cool. Medium settings averaged at 80 FPS, and low settings average into the mid-hundreds. Me thinks medium is ideal overall. Enabling FSR 2.1, I tried out these settings. Ultra with FSR 2 quality was able to get an average rounding to 74 FPS. Good enough for me if it was actual gameplay. The other settings I tried were able to average above 120 FPS, which is good if you desire those higher frame rates. If it was actual gameplay. I also did some ray tracing tests too. Ray tracing overdrive preset is a big nope. Not even FSR 2 can save it. Ray tracing low preset seems to be okay, though FSR 2 quality was not even one frame below FSR 2 auto. Huh. Ray tracing high with FSR 2 performance can average above 30 frames, and ray tracing low with FSR 2 balance and performance can average fairly well above 60 frames. With those done, I went into the game and first tried out native medium settings. I drove around the city for about 5 minutes, and it averaged about 70 FPS, and or near 60 frames on the 1% love. For me at least, I consider that to be pretty good. If you still want ultra settings, FSR 2 quality lets it average into the mid-60s. The percent lows are very good too, but if you still want the minimum to be above 60, maybe you prefer to use FSR 2 balanced. It averaged at 80 frames sharp. Lastly, I tried ray tracing low preset settings with FSR 2 performance, and the average sits pretty comfortable in the mid-70s, so that's cool. Unrelated, but I intend to get a Rebecca Nendoroid soon. I think it'll look cool in one of my GPU thumbnails. You'll see. Elden Ring's gonna get new DLC soon, so it's still relevant. Like Sonic Frontiers, this game caps at 60 frames. We'll start with max settings. We're back in this forest area again because I suck at progressing in this game, and it's looking like this game's playing very well, and the percent lows are pretty good too. If it can already do 1080p well here, why not try out 1440p? Again, this is still a 1080p video. Still at max settings, it's now going under 60, but it's averaging in the mid-50s. Considering that this is an entry-level GPU, I guess that isn't that bad at all. But if we set it to high settings, it's averaging at 60 FPS. Yep, this is what I call a win in 1440p. I also tried 4K resolution on max settings, and if you like the experience of playing on a console, these are the settings for you. For stability, I think medium settings is the most comfortable to play on. It hasn't dipped under 30 here yet. Oh yeah, we can try out ray tracing on this card. Let's crank it back down to 1080p and flip on ray tracing. With max settings and max ray tracing, this is what I call a big nope. With low settings and low ray tracing, the performance is a bit all over the place. It averages in the mid-40s, but it'll dip under 30 frames. Personally, I don't like it. Obviously, you don't really need ray tracing with this game though. 1080p max settings and 1440p high settings seem to be where it's at. Whoa, damn, that's a big dragon. Looks like it's stuck in the ground. Is it dying? What's it doing? This is gonna suck. Even with all these dragons around, the performance is still great at least. Monsters won't hunt themselves, so let's play Monster Hunter World. For these benchmarks, I'm just gonna use DX12, because I got stutters in DX11. Let's go to the Guiding Lands. It's a large map with every biome in Iceborne, so it might be perfect for benchmarking. I went and ran through several laps around the map with each graphic preset. So far, it already seems like the highest settings preset performs just fine. It's averaging in the 80s, and the percent lows are looking pretty good too. High settings and mid settings are also doing pretty well. They both average above 110 FPS, with almost 10 frames difference between them. Low settings lets it reach above 200 FPS by turning off some graphic settings, like additional shadow settings and reflections. Intriguing. Let's go and try out the high resolution texture pack. What's this? Fake HDR? Do we need that? Nah. Check it out. The performance doesn't seem to be that much worse than the highest preset settings. It's averaging close to 80 FPS, and we haven't dipped under 60. With high-res textures, the card's now using over 6GB of VRAM. It's a good thing this is an 8GB card, huh? Let's benchmark an actual quest this time with the high-resolution textures. We'll start with highest settings. There's our target. A Bariath. We're gonna beat it up. It's been a bit since I actually played a world, so excuse my rustiness. Anyway, we're going for the tail first. So far, things were all well and good, but then it spit ice at me. Can you believe it? And the performance dropped to 56 FPS. And you know what? That's cold, bruh. Like, what the fuck? We can't take that. I toned it down to high settings, but I kept the high-res textures, so the Bariath slammed the FPS down, but it ain't out. Cause it didn't go below 60 frames. Not this time. Throughout the hunt, it seems to be averaging between the mid to high 90s, with very healthy looking percent lows. It hasn't stuttered once throughout the whole quest, which is way past cool. Then it hit me again, and it dropped to 63 FPS, which is pretty rude, but it's all good. Overall though, clearly this game is plenty playable on this card. Thanks to its 8GB of VRAM, we were even able to use the high-resolution texture pack. Yay! Monster Hunter Wilds is supposed to come out in 2025. Are you excited for it? All aboard the space train. Honkai Star Rail's next. Just like Genshin, this game caps at 60 on the PC version. We'll start at max settings. Here we are, Penacony's golden hour. So far, we're Ow! Well, we can only dream of averaging at 60 FPS. Except we can't even do that. We're already in a dreamscape. It's averaging at 59 frames. Maybe if we can dream in the dream, we can get the 60 average. Oh, well, I guess not. Let's go ahead and fight some enemies. There, we fought some enemies. Wanna see me do it again? In battle, the performance seems to be the same as it was when you were running around the map. Then I activated Acheron's ultimate, and the performance dipped briefly into the mid-50s. That's not very motivating. I also used Sparkle's ultimate, and as pretty as it looks, it made the performance dip into the mid-40s. That's even worse than Acheron's ultimate. So I switched to high settings and used Sparkle's ultimate again. The performance is better, but it still dipped a bit. Apparently on medium settings, it performed the same as high settings here, even after benching it like 3 times. Then I tried high settings again, and it did better than medium this time. That's nice. Low settings was able to do the trick. The game's still averaging at 59 FPS, but I don't think we can really do anything about that right now. Yeah, you know what? Even on the holy 640 by 480, triggering the ultimate drops the FPS anyway, so I think the best settings we can play on is high settings with the rendering quality set to 1.0, and maybe using FXAA for aliasing. That's how I would enjoy the game with these specs. Nothing much else to say here. I can brag about having Sparkle and Acheron, but they're both E0. When Firefly comes out, I'm a death pull for her. Time to go down by the river, or not. We're playing Baulders Gate III. This game was a pain to benchmark because of crashing, but I did the best I can. So there's a DX11 and a Vulcan version. But when I was benchmarking the Vulcan version, I got these artifacts. I don't know if this is a software-related issue, but this hasn't happened in any of my other benchmarks. I'll stick with DX11 for this video. I decided to play as Shadowheart, and I played the game for a bit until I got to this area. There's a cutscene followed by a battle. I'm gonna benchmark both the cutscene and the battle separately. Just waiting for the goblins to position themselves. I'm waiting. Oh no, the goblins are attacking. What are we gonna do? So on ultra settings, it's averaging in the 80s so far. Oh yeah, that guy's dead. You saw that, right? He was like, ah! When the goblins advanced, the frame rate dipped under 60. That's no good. I tried high settings and the frame rate still went under apparently. On medium and low settings, they both barely stayed above 60 frames. Damn. And for all I know, there might be more performance-demanding cutscenes later in the game. Time for actual gameplay. I benched this entire fight with various graphic settings. With native ultra settings, the frame rate mostly bounced around the mid-70s and the low 80s, and it hadn't dipped below 60 frames, so that's good. Damn it, why must all my attacks roll into a miss? Personally, I'm satisfied with playing on ultra settings, but if the cutscenes going below 60 frames still bothers you overall, native medium settings may work out for you, as well as ultra settings with FSR2 balanced, and high settings with FSR2 quality. This game won 2023's Game of the Year. I guess I can see why it's fun. Maybe I should actually play through this game one day. I'll have to figure out a build for my character and all that stuff. We're gonna benchmark Little Witch Nobeta. We'll play on high settings. I went to run this stage from start to all the way to the boss. I also did low settings off screen. I'll show the results here. Now you may be thinking to yourself,
benchmarking this game is pointless, it's too easy to run.
And if you're a normie, there might be some truth to that. But I actually have reasons why I'm benching Nobeta on this card. 1. This section would have been Dragon's Dogma 2, but I didn't buy the game yet. I'm waiting on a discount, then I might get it. 2. I suck at CSGO, and I wanted to bench a game that can go to very high frame rates, so I picked this. I also learned that Riva Tuner can actually have the FPS uncapped from 480 frames. The more you know. And 3. Just in case you happen to be a normie, a tourist, a Puritan, or a wokey, or a Twitter freak, or whatever, then I got something for you. Yep, this is the part where you get filtered. We've made it to the boss. Time for a rematch. We're gonna beat her up. So from the start of this level to the boss, it averaged into the 390s on high settings. And our maximum FPS was 666. Ah shit, is this benchmark cursed? Ah, for fuck's sake! There, it's over. Dying messed up our percent lows, so as long as you don't fall into the lava or don't die in general, I think you'll have a very smooth experience with this game. Armored Core 6 has mechs in it, so let's play it. This game has ray tracing, but it's only for photo mode. Might as well look at my mech real quick. Obviously, the ray tracing with max settings works just fine. You don't really need to run it at 60 FPS here. I made my mech blue and cyan. Pretty sweet, right? Time for some actual gameplay. We'll start with max settings, and we're gonna play on this mission. We're gonna watch a strider go boom. We're gonna blow it up. Here we are. A desert. You can see the warship silhouette in the distance. You know, I don't like sand, and the GPU doesn't seem to like it either. It hit the minimum to 59 FPS. Talk about a grain below potential. At least high settings take the sandstorm better. We stayed above 60 FPS. Going back to max settings, I popped this leg off. Let's watch it fall. Any minute now. Okay, it's blowing up. That's a lot of sand. It's a good thing we're playing as a mech. Next, we gotta pop these sub-generators. Oh, that one shot through the generator's chassis. There's one. This one gets to go. Pop. There's another one. Here it comes. Pop. The last one is underneath, but apparently the percent lows started dropping on the way there. Well, whatever. Pop. That's all the sub-generators. Time to pop the eye. I know this game doesn't play like Elden Ring, but I find this game to be easier for me to play. Maybe it's because I like mechs better, who knows? And there goes the eye. Well, there's not much else to do here, so let's get out of here. Max, high, and medium settings all dipped under 60 FPS at some point, and the percent lows are near similar to each other too. Low settings did the best by not going under 60 frames. I mean, you might as well play this game on max settings. The game seems to perform well enough while looking its best, or low settings if you want more frames, I guess. Time for the best part. We'll end this segment with a bang.
See that, 621? The Strider's blowing itself up. A fitting end for something built to fail.
We're finally playing Palworld. This game's still in early access, so performance could vary in the future. So I was trying to think of the best way to benchmark this game. I tried just running around areas on the map, but my performance was too inconsistent between settings. Also, the compilation stutter's overpowered, so I thought, why don't I just benchmark at one of my bases? I went to my first base, which is in a spot that many other players use for bases, so this'll be perfect. I got some of my biggest pals out, and there's about like a fuck ton of items scattered across the ground. Yep, this should work. We'll run around the base with various settings, starting with epic settings. As you can see, the game's performance is kind of, nah. It's averaging at 58 FPS. And yeah, I don't like this, not one bit. High settings seems to be more promising. It's averaging over 60 frames now, but the performance still gets pulled well under 60. Still not quite what I'm looking for. Medium settings averaged in the 80s, and it's actually staying above 60 frames. The game's frames are bouncing around the mid-60s and the mid-90s. Low settings and lowest settings may also help it not go under 60 frames, and even with those settings, the game will still stutter, hitting hard on the percent lows. I'm hoping that this gives you a good idea on how each of these settings perform, because even on lowest settings, the performance is still all over the place. In other words, the console experience. I'm leaning towards medium or high settings as the best to play on, but you'll still have to deal with dips and stutters, so I guess I'm leaving it up to you on how you want to play. What's important is that the specs can play the game. Again, this game is still in early access. If possible, I'm hoping the performance will be more stable in the future. Despite the game's flaws, it's still tons of fun. It added a raid boss recently, which I haven't tried yet, but it's good to know they're adding more content to this game. Should be fun. The last game we'll play is Helldivers II. The 6600 is a fighter, right? So let's see it fight for freedom. Starting on ultra settings, we're dropping in to spread democracy on these bugs, and the frame rate's dropping down to spread, not democracy on us. We are so not running at 60 frames. We don't even get to reach 50 most of the time. You know, I'm getting the impression that this game really isn't meant to be played solo. Or maybe I just have skill issues. That would explain a lot. Let's try on high settings. Looks like we can actually reach 60 frames now, but it still often goes under. I don't really know what that bug is, but I sure don't like it. How do you even beat this thing up? Medium settings seem to be more promising. It's now averaging in the mid-60s, though it's still dipping into the 50s. As demanding as this game is, the percent lows are doing okay at least. And with low settings, the game's performing very differently. It's averaging in the hundreds, and it's no longer dropping below 60 frames, which is all well and good. But I don't like the idea of recommending low settings to play this game on, especially on a 6600. I tried high settings with the render scaling at ultra quality. It's averaging in the 80s, and it isn't going under 60 this time. Even the percent low stayed over 60, at least throughout this mission. Sweet freedom. While I don't think the render scaling is bad on ultra quality, render scaling can obscure sight from afar. And I think with this kind of game, you gotta be able to see as much as you can, right? So I turned off the render scaling and went and messed with the settings a bit. So it's now between low and medium presets. As you can see, it's averaging in the 80s again, and it did drop closer to 60 frames, but it still didn't drop under. These settings seem to be as good as I can get it with these specs. You won't have the render scaling obscuring your sight, and you still have anti-aliasing too. At least now, we can fight for democracy with peace in mind. Man, this is like the worst way to die. But at least it's for democracy. In a time where 4K is like totally the standard for gaming, 1080p stands out to be more accessible and affordable to PC gamers, and I think the 6600 does a pretty sweet job at it for an entry-level GPU. It's obviously able to play many games. It can even do a little bit of 1440p gaming, and we can see it's able to play newer games as well. But that's also when you kinda start to see it drop off a little bit. In games like Helldivers II, for example, it struggled with higher settings, so we either had to use lower settings or lower the render scaling to try and hold above 60 FPS in 1080p. At least you can still play the game. Will this card be able to stand the test of time? I have no idea. But perhaps features like Radeon Super Resolution, in-game upscalers, and other features can help it keep in the race. There's also concerns of its 8GB of VRAM, since newer games have been demanding ever more of it. Well, I do hope it'll at least be good for the rest of this strange gaming generation. This card was priced originally at $330 in the US, but it's 2024 now, so you can often find it for near or sub $200 in the US. I think it's a pretty good value considering the benchmarks we did. It's certainly a better value than the 4060, which is a better card, but it's $300. There's also the RTX 3060. If you can actually find one priced closer to $200, I think that would be the better pickup overall. So what do you think about the Radeon RX 6600? Do you want an RX 6600? Do you also think it has a good price to performance? Would you rather spend a little bit more on an RTX 3060? Or maybe a 6650 XT? Do you want Stellar Blade to be on PC so it can be uncensored with mods, and I can actually benchmark it on my devices? Let me know in the comments. So thanks for watching this video. If you happen to like this video, or perhaps you found it useful in some way, consider hitting the like button and subscribing. And don't forget to share the video. With the power of affordable graphics cards that don't suck, I can become best girl. Yep, that should be everything. Bye!